Hello, everyone. Welcome to join us at the National Distance Learning Week with SUNY Online. My name is Lin. I'm a graduate student intern with SUNY Online Teaching, and I'm also an adjunct lecturer at U Albany. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session and to introduce our speaker. Angelico Pearlman is a senior instructional designer emerita at SUNY Brockport and at the University of Rochester, and also an adjunct faculty member in the Department of Journalism, Broadcast, and Public Relations at SUNY Brockport. She has supported faculty transitions to hybrid and online courses and led COIL initiatives at Brockport. Jie Zhang is also a professor of special education in the Department of Education, Language, and Instructional Design at SUNY Brockport. She served as the Open SUNY Online Teaching Ambassador in 2018 and has been teaching open educational resource courses since 2016 and collaborative online international learning courses since 2018. Welcome Anne and Jie to start their presentation.
Thank you, Lin, for the beautiful introduction, and thank you, Aaron, for the opportunity for us to exchange our ideas with our audience. I'm going to move this to the second slide. Today, we are going to use this about 40 minutes to explore concrete examples of planning and implementing AI pedagogical materials, strategies, and assessments into student coursework. We will discuss how to help students gain cultural awareness and critical analysis skills through AI-empowered materials, and also we will discuss how to tackle the pedagogical and technological issues encountered with integrating digital AI literacy into college-level courses to promote deeper learning and global competence. With that, I'm going to turn this to Anne. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So I'm going to be, Jay and I are going to share some of our courseworks with you and some of our assignments. But I'm going to start off with mine. I teach a course at SUNY Brockport called Advertising and Consumer Culture. Through all my years of teaching, I've taught all different forms of media. And one of the main was video production, because I owned a video production company and I taught at RIT and different places. But when I start with my students, the first thing we talk about is telling a story through images. So our courses are really based on the idea of imagery and how people communicate and tell story through images. So what you're seeing here, I'm sorry, I'm looking to the side here because I have the larger screen. What you're seeing here is an example of one of my students' storyboards, but before they create a commercial. And so you'll see how you draw everything out ahead of time to pre-visualize what you're going to be doing when you're creating your media. Next slide, please. So what we want to talk, so now we're moving into this different world here and AI is out there. Generally, through all the years of teaching, we had students create their own images. It could be from drawing to animation to taking still images or video. And now we've progressed into parts where people are going to the computer and asking for imagery. There also was where students would use images from the web, and also clip art was a thing for a time. But now we're talking about images that are coming through by you're asking for them through these tools called AI. And what we're going to look at is what are the built-in biases. And when I say bias, I mean not always a negative term, but what comes up when you're asking for it. What images are coming forward based on using this idea of a tool. So, and do we as a global society visualize the same? So what we're asking for, is it something that we're going to see? So I want to just start with a little activity. I'm realizing now I can't see if anybody responds, and maybe Lynn could help with this. So imagine this. One of the first ways of storytelling was through oral histories, oral storytelling. And so now imagining you're listening to an oral story and it's set in Alaska. And the story starts with this. Imagine a calm day in Alaska. What do you see? What do you visualize? As the first thing that comes to your mind based on where you're from, who you are, your culture. What do you visualize when you think about Alaska? Can we get maybe a couple of answers there? I won't be able to see them, but maybe I can. Anybody have any ideas? Oh, snowy and cold. There you go. First thing, right? Snowy and cold. They say culture is pause time and culture is based on your culture. Italians don't have a lot of pause. So next slide. So snowy and cold, very good one. Okay. Oops. So right. So now I thought about, okay, but what about summer? So I used to do this to my students because the whole idea was that when you say something, and the reason I was stressing the point of why do we storyboard? We storyboard so that we all get on the same page of what we're seeing. So I did go and get some images, and these I did get from tools that would be considered AI. And so the first one is from the on the left here is the Firefly. That's Firefly Adobe, and that's stock. So they pull stock imagery, so stock photographs. And the other one was a different tool just went out there and looked for, and it kind of pixelated pictures together of summer. And what I asked for is not necessarily what I've got. I asked for a close up of summer of a beach, so I got a long shot. Those are the words we use. Okay, so next slide. Uh, so let me give you a little background about, I'm sorry, go back one, a little bit of background about the course that I'm showing examples from today. So Jay and I have been involved in COIL, which probably many of you know about, and you may have heard us speak about this before, Collaborative Online International Learning. Brockport became part of SUNY COIL back in 2011. So we've been dedicated to keeping this going and having this international partnerships between our classes. So what happens in the two courses is two colleges come together and do a lesson or a semester or something together with different cultures in the same room. So I had last semester mine was University of Pernambuco and at SUNY Brockport. And what the students did was for the COIL collaboration, we had the benefit last semester of having time we really met on Zoom. So we got to meet 4 times to get to know each other and to go through the assignments together. And uh, and they also had some activities. So the students did an icebreaker activity, and then they got together to meet. They got to talk. It was really interesting to see a gen ed class get together with another course that was similar in Brazil, and then they did the project together and they reviewed each other. So that's how the assignments went. So I'll go to the assignment that we worked on. If I'm going fast, forgive me. So the whole idea, so once the students got to know each other, we had to give out the assignment what they're going to be doing. And it was the teams in each school. Brockport had teams and Brazil had teams. They were to make an advertisement for a product or a social issue of concern to both countries. So leading up to this, they had to learn about each other. And my students are involved in a heavy research project prior to this. They do an icebreaker, learn about each other, talk, and then they do some research with our librarian about the other countries, and then they do a survey. They survey each other, and then they decide to come up with these commercials the advertisements that should work for both. Or, which is nice about it, they can review it and give each other feedback. So the idea is that create a web commercial or the public service announcement that is either made up of photographs, drawings, computer images. I really still like to get them to do things like create on their own, but they are using different tools. Like I said, it's gen ed class. And then they're create a oral presentation and present to each other and to get reviews back. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I did add in a component. I'm thinking going forward, it's going to become one of the projects itself. Now, I told them if they intended to use AI, they have some extra steps here. The purpose of using AI is a few things here. One is I want them to realize when they give a textual description of something, what is the image going to be? They are talking to a system. They're talking to a computer, whatever, and a tool. And I'm wondering what they're going to get. So want them to pre-visualize ahead. They're supposed to storyboard ahead what they're going to ask for. So they're going to draw or something, a close-up of a model, advertising you'll see one of the images here, products. Or they're going to do something about the Amazon in Brazil, advertising that, or making a public service announcement about that. So they have to decide how they're going to communicate. And then find out, is this tool understanding what I'm saying? How much communication do I have to get to what I'm thinking about? And I also want them to think about, like I said, the biases. What they're getting, is that really what's there? Is that what we really see? Is that kind of model that we're talking about? Is that really a person would be from Brazil? And then I want them to discuss their observations. I'm finding different things about it. Now, if we can play this, I have a student who did a piece. The next one. And you can hear what she went through creating. This is her advertisement on e.l.f. products. Let's see if it'll work.
Hello. So for assignment 2, I decided to focus on e.l.f. Cosmetics Power Grip Primer. e.l.f. Cosmetics currently has a global retail presence in 18 countries, including Germany, Spain, Sweden, Norway, and the United Kingdom. So this is the advertisement I have come up with to target the Gen Z and millennial demographic in the US, while also pertaining to the idea of sports and makeup ideologies merging together. So to find a image, I decided to use Canva AI. And so when I was trying to come up with the image at first, I wanted to hone in on the idea of sports and makeup merging together. So I decided to use rock climbing as the sport because it requires a strong grip, which is also the main selling point of the product. So as I was trying to find the correct image for the ad, it was very difficult at first. So I tried putting in phrases that would describe the image in my head. However, I had to use a few different phrases to find what I was looking for. At first, I used woman rock climbing to the front to get a front-facing image of a woman rock climbing, but none of them were what I was looking for. So then I decided to try another idea. So I used the phrase view of a woman rock climbing with one hand. Once again, I was not able to find anything exactly what I was looking for. So I decided to ditch using the word woman, and I just decided to see if I could get a close-up of a rock climber's hands as they climbed using only one hand. I wanted to use the free hand to hold the product to give it a good placement in the ad. However, I could not find what I wanted. Then I decided to go on a more broad search of woman rock climbing, and I found the image that I thought was perfect for my ad. It showed a woman rock climbing, and she has one hand with a grip on the rock, and one was dangling in the air. So I was able to get the action along with a good placement for the product. Overall, my experience with using AI to create this particular ad was frustrating. It was hard to get the exact image I wanted, even when I was specific in my descriptions, and sometimes the AI would not produce the image because of a few keywords that seemed to go against the community guidelines. When I did find a photo that I thought was good to use, there was always something off about it. Sometimes it was the face missing an eye or looking awkward. Other times it was a misshapen body part that is in a random spot and does not make sense for the photo. However, I got lucky being able to find the photo that I did. For the other advertisement I made, I decided to target the United Kingdom. So I thought about the stereotypical rainy day weather that many people get in that region. So once I started thinking about that, I came up with the idea of making an ad where a woman was losing her umbrella to unruly winds in a rainstorm in London to make the ad relatable to the UK audience. So for the second ad, it was an easier process for finding the photo than it was for the first one. The first search I put in was woman losing her umbrella. When I found results for this, most of the images created a somber mood and they were black and white, giving no visual appeal to the eye for the product. There was also no good spot for product placement. So I searched the phrase woman's umbrella fighting with the wind and I found the image I was looking for. So my second time using the AI for the ads was a stark contrast to my first. This time I only had to do 2 searches and they were accurate and helpful in the process of me creating my ad. Every photo that came up was a direct depiction of the description I searched, and although there were a few weird edits to them, most of them were not as noticeable as the edits in the first ad search. It was different to choose between the photos as most of them had most of the aspects that I was looking for.
Okay, so I wanted to let the students speak for themselves. There was difference in this. This was the online course. It was right after my COIL course, and the students pick the country that they wanted. So she picked United Kingdom. So we did get reviews. Now, first of all, you heard what she had to say. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of, they're not exactly getting what they want. And the bigger issue for me here is that I want them to start looking at things to see, where is this coming from? Where is this image coming from? And they do notice. And I think of course, things will change and things will obviously get more intricate and maybe not as drawn like these look. So it doesn't look as fake. But the biggest response, even yesterday, I had my class and the students they were starting it again. They're noticing when advertising companies are using AI and they're not keen on that. They think it's too fake looking. So here was the review on this. The students always give positive review. So they thought something they could do to make it, they think something you could do is improve the advertising to make it look more realistic. They thought that the AI image was not realistic. But I think as a real product, it should be an image better. So they learned a little bit about that. And when you look at this, is this the way women look? All the other things, could have gone deeper conversation in that. So next one. Okay. Now this is the one, this was one of the examples we used in Brazil. And so the students had a chance to meet and show they did a presentation to the other team. And they did find out through their research that health is a big in Brazil, and whey products are also a large. Am I muted? Okay, I got a mute out there. I'm sorry. So they found out that that was a big product in both countries. Anyway, so when they got together, what they did find from they had AI make this image, and they found that the person they thought was a good depiction of a female in both countries. But what they did find out was that fruit was not. So all the fruit below was all stuff from the United States, banana, like apples, things like that. So we have some here, but they found out that they had to mix things up a little bit. So the idea coming back from the other country was that doesn't suit us because it's not what we have. So they learned a little bit about the process there, though they accepted a lot of the other things in here. They found that that's one thing they could change. So um, it only showed up United States type of things when they asked for the imagery, types of fruits. Next slide, please. Okay, now these students here, they went through quite a bit of iteration. So they wanted to do more sustainability, and they were marketing kind of like Burt's Bees to me. It seems like they were marketing a product that's made, and it's all about sustainability and things. They found both countries really believe in products that support sustainability. So they also used AI for these tools, for these images. It looks to me more photographs. So if you look to the one to the right versus the one to the left. So go forward there. So I asked them to put in there what they asked for. So they asked for things like create an image of a Dove products laid out on a vanity, create an image of this for the slogan, add the slogan for the animals by the people. So they really used, some of the students got the image and then took it into a program and added their own slogan stuff. These students were having to give them everything. And then they went on to the different parts. We then needed some imagery for the sustainability side of the product. First, we asked to show people working together. They asked AI to create an animated earth for sustainability, and the results they were not matching their needs that they thought the team really desired. So then they asked for other things. So they went on. This group went through a bunch of iterations because they were going to. They were good about really being selective with what they wanted. Next one. It's a lot of text there, So how AI and the AI and team learned about each other. So I asked them, what did you do to get to AI to understand what you were asking for? So they researched different tools. They decided which one they were going to use. They found that Gemini was having issues, but it gave them the diverse set of images that they wanted. So they even tried out different tools. They tested random images outside of the topic to learn how it works. They learned what description the software responded to best. So they really learned they're learning the communication and found sample descriptions produce the best results. And they found the more AI caught on to what they wanted, the more they got what they wanted. The more they communicated with it, the more they got what they wanted. I see some stuff over here. Okay. So now I want to step away from the students are becoming. I still like when students go back to not using AI and think about their creativity. So here was a group of students who decided to do concerts between the two countries because they found, first of all, we found out that Brazil has a lot more music than one type. Everybody thought there was just salsa or something. And so these students, now this was a graphic student, they decided to make their own ad. And they did pull, you can see no matter what we say, probably the images in the middle, you see right there is something off the web that's a designed image, so it probably is AI. It wasn't put together by AI. And they decided to do it in Portuguese. And the response from the other group of Brazilian students was everything they liked but the colors, because the red color to them was too drastic, seemed too negative to the group. So they learned something about that. Next one. And then I got back to where here's one of my students who just decided to draw by hand. So what we're seeing in the difference is, what does that tool give me, and how is that really going to advertise? And part of me wants to go beyond the advertisement part and talk about the literacy, what they're learning about imagery and how it's persuading them, even outside of just advertisement, how they see so much of it now. And then we have students who go back to the idea of being just creative and designing by hand. So I want to show a little bit of going back to what they're seeing versus what the tool is giving them. So this is one of my other students. I think that's my part, Jay, until later.
Thank you. And so for me, I did a three-way coil collaborative online international learning among Brockport and LB France and Ternopil Ukraine. And the way I did it is we first tried the Google Classroom, but after one semester, the students thought the Google Classroom added another layer to the current instructional learning management tool. So they were not very interested in the extra step to get into the core materials and the discussions, etc. So what we did was instead of using the Google Classroom, I put the core related materials to our current learning management system, which is the Brightspace, and then so did my partner professors, and then we use the Padlet as the common tool platform for the students to post their team videos and post their presentations, and then conduct some interactive comments. So these are some tools the students use, the Zoom, WhatsApp, Google Docs, Google Slides, YouTube voice thread, etc. And the class met 3 to 4 times during one semester, and for like as a whole class for synchronous meetings, and then the rest of the sessions were conducted asynchronously. All the students find the time to meet outside of the scheduled class synchronous class time. And we started with the self-introduction and cultural comparisons. And we, after the cultural iceberg, the students get together in our first synchronous meeting and did some speaking practices to compare about their cultures. And after the first class, they were given some time to work on a team presentation on introduction. And then the second teamwork was related to the more about cultural comparisons, and we used the intercultural training exercise my French international partner professor introduced to us, and we gave the pack to the students, asking them to select one topic per team. For example, the nonverbal communication or communication or values at work, or different communication types, or observing different body language types, or different stereotypes, or attitudes and behaviors across different countries, and then they do comparisons. And then they make the second team presentation reporting to their selected topic. Then it comes to the content. So for a couple of semesters, we selected AI in education and its impact. This was done about 2 years ago when the AI started to merge into our students' lives. And interestingly, when our students were doing the comparisons, our Ukrainian and French students were all talking about how they use AI in their classes to support their learning. And a lot of my students from the United States say, oh, we don't use AI in our learning because a lot of our professors forbid us to use that. And we don't want to get into trouble of plagiarism. So with that, it was very interesting for me as a teacher preparation educator, because when I went to the field in K-12 settings, I know the schools at that time are thinking or even were actively involving purchasing Magic School or Copilot, etc. to support their teachers' use of AI to support their students' learning. And here, when I hear a lot of our teacher candidates saying, "Oh, we don't use AI," that raised the question about the discrepancy between what they learn in their university classes versus what they are going to face when they graduate from our programs and get to the field of education. And it even inspired us to conduct an AI like research and the implementation of AI in my courses later semester. So this is something this project kind of like lead to. And during the process, we used different like rubrics for different team projects. Like the for the previous two, the team presentation on introduction, as well as the team presentation on the cultural comparisons. We use a much simpler syllabus like the rubrics, but then for the AI content project presentation, I adopted the AAC&U value rubric as well as integrated in the CEC Council for Exceptional Learning standards. For example, the standards on collaborating with team members, the standards on understanding and addressing individual students' learning and the needs, as well as the standard on engaging in professional learning and practice with ethical guidelines. So these professional organizations' standards were integrated into the value rubric so that this can be also meeting our accreditation body's accreditation purpose. So with that, I'm going to turn to Anne again. Thank you.
So I think the big thing for me, and I thank you, Jay, that was really wonderful. What we really want to think, the assignment was all about media literacy, critical thinking skills, teamwork, and peer review, and then self-assessment and reflection. So I think going forward, I just worked on having this introduced into the class this semester again, and I think I'm going to separate a whole piece out for them to look at it like a separate assignment and have them all go into it, because I think the real thing we have to look at here is them understanding what's coming, because so much is being put forward to them in basis and things of images. And how are they going to differentiate and know what is factual and what isn't? And I know that's part of it too, with the idea of factual, but also representation. What does it mean? And what is the difference and also in the human, between the human and the tool? So I think I have an example I want to show you of what students did. And it's kind of a mix between using an AI tool and a wonderful human aspect. I think it's the next slide, Jay. Let's see. Is the video there? So I want you to watch. So let me give you a little background on this video before we start. So this is surprising to me. I still love to see the human connection that happens between cultures and classes. So now this was the class that had the Brazilian students in it also. But in the class itself, and I think many of you, if you walk in, you see this. You walk in 8 o'clock in the morning, and everybody in the room, you got 50 students, and they're all looking at their phones. And I'm watching this through the semester, and sometimes I'm thinking I'm thinking the wrong thing, because that is their world, right? And I'm saying, so I walk in, I'm watching them all do this, and I'm thinking, so now you've been here 10 weeks and you have partners, and are you communicating? So I say it to them. I said, guys, you're on this. What about the people around you and everything? And I even asked this semester, and I got different comments from them. But what I found in the end, so I had a student in front, and she would drive in she lived in Letchworth, which is not very close to Brockport, as you probably know, so downstate a little bit, or not that far, but. So she was there. She was more mature student, meaning she was more in sense of she was more of a senior. I have mostly freshmen. And she had a group her group consisted of 2 students from Nepal and then 1 freshman student. So I didn't realize the communication that was happening between them, that they were getting to know each other, because like I said, they're always on their phones. So she said to me, can I use Canva to make the video? Now, what you're going to see here is a mix of a couple of things. So I've been editing since late 70s with different equipment, and anything before till a little as it's moved forward, you can get things to create things for you in the tool. Before, everything was done by the editor themselves, meaning any kind of graphic design, you had to do all the background work yourself. So she's using Canva, which is generated in a sense by AI in that way, and she's inserting images. But what's surprising I want you to watch this, and I'll tell you the surprise that happened to me after seeing the video, but the human aspect. So their advertisement was about, and it was quick, but their advertisement was on a travel agency. And so I looked at the images in class and I said, wait a minute, did you green screen yourself in all these places? Because I realized in there was Niagara Falls, there was Letchworth State Park, all these different places. She said, no, I picked them up. She picked up, came up to Brockport, picked up the students, and they went to these places. So my heart, I hate to say it, but I always like to see, like, again, the human part of it. So what I saw here was a real mix of something that can happen out there with a tool and allows them to be creative, but yet there was a whole human piece here that happened with them. She took them to these places, and there a real friendship happened in the room. So we had an intercultural thing happening in the room with students from. We had international students in the class, and also younger and older students in there, and they created something and using a tool, but also being very interactive among themselves and friendly. So it lifted my heart. Let's put it that way. So that was my piece.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you for the beautiful video. And with that, we want to thank you. And we do want to leave some time for our audience to see if you have any questions for us. So we can have a Q&A. And we will give this back to Lillian. Thank you.
So I have one question actually. It is interesting because I'm going to talk about, visual designs for my strategic communication tomorrow. And but one question I would like to address, or I would like to ask your opinions on, like, how do you address the ethic use of AI for a class? Because we know like students sometimes like student only use AI fully AI generated content as their work. But how do you address this ethical issues in class with the student?
So you mean when you say ethics as to what they're pulling, or ethics of using it as using it in class?
Yeah. So yeah.
So Jay, you could start, I had an example this semester of writing that way, but how about you? Would you want to answer something like that?
Yeah, you can go ahead and I can follow up. Thank
Well, on this assignment was because we were asking them to do it, I felt different. But I did have a student when I knew who handed in the whole assignment was written in AI. So if so, what the only, I mean, we don't. I don't know about a policy yet. I don't think we have a policy yet. Is that correct? That's written. So I knew it, and the thought that went through my mind was the disadvantage to the student because of what handing in something that was written totally by a different tool. So for them, the disadvantage, what I did was I just wrote back and said, it seems to me like there was some writing here that your writing was assisted, and I need to have you now. The whole idea here is this is for the research project. So the research project, they have to go out and find all different information about the other country, and they can cite, but they need to paraphrase. So I could tell by the writing, the paraphrase it was all written by AI. Just by the way, there's things in there you can tell. So I had to have them rewrite it 2 or 3 times, and I said you need to, because you're not learning from this. If you're handing it in, you may learn from it. So they use it as a learning tool to help them understand is one thing, but they need to paraphrase it and put it back. So that's how I dealt with that one because there isn't a policy at the point. And I think I have some assignments coming in. This I noticed that students did use AI for the imagery, but didn't do the extra part. So they're going to have to make sure they do the extra part that I told them about. Tell me how you got it, what you did, because I can see by looking at it, it's not. So I mean, we could put things through tools and everything, but the biggest disadvantage to me is that what they are really getting out of it. Then, if that answers anything. Okay.
Yeah, for me, I used to have an inclusive philosophy statement, which is a big as like essay assignment for the students at the intro level course, and I now break it into pieces. So each part I like ask the student to do the submission, and then I provide feedback. I think sometimes students may be overwhelmed by a large assignment, and then if they can search and use ChatGPT to or other AI tools to do the assignment, like when they are getting closer to the due date and they get panic, then some of them may use the AI. However, if you just break it up into small pieces and like to put it in at a lower risk for or lower stake for the students. And also they were aware of the the policy of plagiarism and the possibility of doing that may be lower. So that's how I do it. And I heard some of the English professors will, instead of ask the students to do it online assignment, they now move it back to the in-class writing. So this is another thing. Thanks. And I see in chat, Matt also has a good comment about a good example of the Coca-Cola.
And this is Erin. I after Matt shared that example of Coca-Cola, is that something that, from your experience with video editing and your background, and with the marketing materials too that you're seeing, do you think that this is really kind of where we're headed, that we're going to see much more of this kind of mashup of, AI and user, created, artist created. My son is an artist, a digital artist, and this infuriates him,
Yeah,
right?
my daughter,
He's
my
he's
daughter's a
such a
graphic.
purist.
Well,
So
I
I'm
think there
just
is. I
curious
think,
what you think.
but no, that's a good point though, because I think that the purists will. We've seen these things before, and I understand. There's always I hate to even relate it to this one. Do you remember when we had MOOCs? MOOCs going to end the world. And not to say AI is bigger, believe me, but I think we will see this. But I think the thing is that people are going to see that it doesn't look real. Now, Dove committed. My students brought up in class that Dove products, they're not going to use AI. They're committed to not using it because their campaign is all about women in different bodies and not making people feel bad about themselves and all that. So you'll probably see a lot of things happening that way. But when you look at it, like you say, it doesn't look real to me. And will people accept it? I think they've accepted a lot of different things over the years, but I think they'll, again, if we look at, there's a term remediation in media, and it's not remediation like fixing things, but it's how media moves forward, taking something from the previous, artistry media, take something from the previous and make it their own and move it forward. And the one behind it becomes something else. For example, black and white photography was, and this is on the same line, and I want to make sense of it here. So black and white photography was initially done so when they were drawing people, they could get a still image of them and they could draw them later, right? So the artist got to use that tool so they could draw. So then what happens? So black and white photography now is there and it becomes something else. So the photography itself moved forward and it took attributes from the artist, but the framing, everything like that, and became another medium. In the artist world, the drawing world became a different medium. From each one that takes something, it progresses into something else, and the old one becomes something else, the new one becomes something else. So I think, to me, if I go out and look at imagery, if I go and see imagery, there's a difference between snapshots and photographs. So I think hopefully that will remain that way. I mean, I think they will try to take over, and they'll try to do that because they'll think it's cheaper and easier. They've done that to artists over forever, graphic artists and videographers. Well, we can do it now ourselves. It's cheaper, it's easier. But I think there will be a purist place. And I hope so. That makes a difference with the human. Because I know I don't want to be negative at all either, but I understand that fully. I hope that made sense. I'm not sure if I even answered what you're asking, but you will see this, whether or not people want to accept it and whether or not it makes a difference. I think that's a whole nother story in that way. Because advertising itself is a mix of science and art, and there's really no campaigns that really hit it, and it's gonna make the difference in that way. So I hope your son, like I said, stays encouraged.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there other questions or comments? And if anyone wants to use the mic, just let me know. I'll promote you. If folks weren't following the chat, there are some tools that were shared in there too that other people have used. So that's great to kind of take note of while you're here. And if there aren't additional questions, I will put up our closing slide and ask Lynn to close us out.
Okay. Thank you for Jen, and thank you to all the attendees for attention and participation in today's webinar. And thank you for everyone who shared the AI tools in the chat. Here's a quick overview of tomorrow's session, which is on the slide, and more details can be found on our National Distance Learning Week website. Recordings will also be posted on that website too. National Distance Learning Week is sponsored by USDLA, who also hosts additional events this week. Check them out on their event website. We hope to see you at another session this week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.